Welcome. My name is Clark Korb, and today I will be exploring the concept of grounding. So, what that means, why it's useful to us as human beings, and how you may incorporate some simple practices to derive some benefit from it. In general, I believe grounding is one of those terms that we tend to throw around a lot. It's broadly used, but not necessarily well defined, and it can be defined very differently by context. I'm going to start with the very simple electrical version. That's literally having a conductive path hardwired into Earth. If you have one of these three pronged plugs at home in the US, you can see this third prong is literally allowing for an electrical conduction directly to ground. So within your home or the structure, the building you're in, if there's that third prong feeding the electrical outlet in your home, there's a conductive path at some point to a conductor sticking into the ground. So the purpose for this is to be able to rapidly direct current or charge into the ground. Current is just moving charge. For humans, physically, this means standing barefoot on Earth would be the equivalent physically to be directly in contact with Earth. Although, for I think a proper distinction here, there is a term for that called earthing that's often used interchangeably, where standing on Earth is earthing is the same thing as grounding. And for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to draw a distinction between those two. So connecting bare feet to Earth is certainly earthing, but different from this broader sense of grounding. And it really is, it's not just an analogy to have this applied to the electrical, physical side of things, in that we are electrochemical beings. We produce periodic time varying waveforms that you can measure with medical equipment. If you've had an electroencephalogram or electrocardiogram, there are devices that measure your heart rate or brain activity. Grounding from an athletic perspective isn't necessarily using that same verbiage, but it's very much recognized as something useful. It has great utility in playing sports. If you're a basketball player and you occupy the triple threat stance, your knees are kind of flexed a little bit. You're ready to receive a ball if it's being passed to you, or if you have the ball, you're ready to pass, dribble, or shoot from that kind of neutral stance. Same thing if you watch baseball players, a defensive posture that infielders and outfielders will hold just before the batter swings. They're going to have their knees flexed. They're looking up. They're not standing in a straight line or having any kind of kinks in their body. They're loose and they're ready to move from a position of power. Even something like Tai Chi, which is a martial art or a meditation practice, the posture from this again employs flexed knees, having the center of mass directed towards the earth so that the body isn't either hyperextended or super crunched over, but having kind of your lower body, having your center of mass around your lower abdomen directed toward the earth. So this is the idea of having this chi grounded, your life force energy directed toward the earth is very important with that. And then, of course, in the practical aspects of being emotionally or temperamentally grounded, typically that means someone, if you refer to someone who's a grounded person, you typically think of them as well balanced and sensible, as opposed to, by contrast, someone who's maybe more scattered or erratic or untethered. Those are things, descriptions we have that are the antithesis of grounding. So then to draw what's useful from this, okay, all these sort of definitions and contexts are interesting, but how do we bring this into benefit for us on a daily basis? I'd like to point out that there are some paradoxes with this, that you can certainly stand barefoot on the earth and be fully earthing, yet still be fraught with anxiety based on what's going on in your head or your energetic space. And you can also be flying in a plane and be completely emotionally stable, calm, clear, joyous, blissful, falling asleep, even these kinds of things, which, even though you're far away from the surface of the earth, you can emotionally or energetically be very grounded. So, given these apparent paradoxes, I want to suggest that this is really more about a practice that you cultivate. It's something that is not an event. It's not something that you do and it just sticks. I had an experience today of going through a very nice grounding meditation and practice, some of my favorite sorts of things, and then getting in the car on the freeway and putting the top down and being entirely ungrounded, happy, but it's something that is, it brings your energy level into a different space and have to come back and reground before continuing with some other work. So it's an ongoing practice, and it isn't necessarily a negative thing not to ground, but it's something that I believe, if done intentionally and with repetition, with practice, you cultivate a greater sense of equanimity, this psychological, emotional stability and composure that helps you enjoy life. And it's not in any way dampening the joy and the creative expressions that can come through, but rather make you more capable of accessing those. I look at this a lot of ways as likening it to an infinity symbol, where an infinity symbol looks like an 8 turned on its side. And if you're always traversing some path on that infinity symbol at any given time, other than the brief instant when you're in the very center of that infinity symbol, you're always on a tangential vector that's moving away from center, but you're really ultimately swinging back to come around back toward the center. So whether you're above or below or to the right or the left of that symbol, you're always orienting yourself back to move towards center, if you will, regardless of where you happen to be on the path right now. So keeping your eye on the target, so to speak, moving back towards center. So why is this useful? This is super useful in neutralizing your interactions. It really can tend to reduce the potential for unnecessary emotionally or charge reactions. Imagine you worked in customer service and you pick up a phone call from an angry customer. If you weren't in a grounded state, it might be very easy to have that interaction go in, let's say, a less than productive way. It also helps you moderate, not only in tempering your emotions, but being more fair in how you deal with other people and eliminating judgment, both of yourself and of other people. It certainly reduces the likelihood that you'll be triggered from your own wounding from events that occur. And also, I think one of the most valuable productivity aspects of this is that it helps you with your focus. It helps you not sweat the small stuff and really keep your not only eye on the target, whether it's that center of the infinity symbol or your goal or whatever you're working on. But in this, you kind of develop this noise immunity, and that literally has another electrical translation. If in the electrical circuit world, imagine you have an amplifier and you're wanting to amplify a productive signal. The designers will specifically design little traps for noise that they want to filter out of that signal, and they'll literally divert that noise to ground while passing through the desired signal into the amplifier, so that you're only amplifying the useful signal and not the noise. So with this focus, it also helps you be more present to what has heart and meaning. So it isn't just an intellectual exercise. When you finish your workday, whether you're working with people or when you come home and you want to be with family members or you're enjoying something fun at a concert or on vacation, if you're not really present, you're not making the most of the experience that you can have from that. You're actually missing out on some of the highs, some of the good that can come from that. So being grounded puts you in a state where you're not saturated, whereas if your system is already overtaxed, it's keeping you from really being able to enjoy the breadth and depth of what's available to you there. This also really helps for developing a mind like water. This is a terminology that's been, I know, quoted from the Getting Things Done book by David Allen. So the ability to be adaptable to swings, to not overreact to something. Again, not just emotionally, but the idea that whatever obstacles come your way, as if a different size, a teeny pebble versus a large boulder gets plopped into a lake, the lake will respond appropriately with the size of the splash to accommodate the size of the rock and not either over or underreact. And again, this leads into that concept of resilience that I spoke about in another video. Being grounded really helps you develop resilience because you have far less to have to recover from if you're in this more neutral state. Okay, so those are all some practical kind of context for why this is useful. How do you actually bring it into your daily life? So I won't go into depth on any specific meditations or mudras that people can use to ground. There are many to look from online, but I will cover the general principles and encourage you to find something that works best for you, because we're all a bit different in terms of what will connect with us individually. So in general, you want to still your mind. To begin this practice, you want to do it in a place where you can dedicate some time and focus, and in a space that's a quiet environment. So stilling your mind, not forcing yourself to think about nothing, but just letting go, giving yourself permission to let go of what's on your mind. Connecting to your breaths with some deep belly breathing. I find it can be really useful if you haven't been comfortable with deep belly breathing, to put a hand on your abdomen, on your belly button, and breathe in such that your belly will make your hand rise or move. And when you're in this state, I think it's easiest to close your eyes and envision a virtual path to the earth somehow. Whether you're sitting on the earth or standing on the earth, that's awesome, but it isn't necessary for this exercise. Some friends of mine, like envisioning a root system that's growing out from your toes and connecting to the root system of the earth. Some people like to use a laser beam that you can envision leaving the center of your feet and connecting to the center of the core of the earth. One of my friends uses this visualization of a sock or like a heat shrink that would wrap around the sacrum, the tailbone, and connect to the earth. So all these visualizations are super helpful because they help us. It's an easier way of helping us tap into uh, our energy flow, and also physically relaxing the muscles that need to relax to help us have the maximum benefit from this. In other words, if you're trying to breathe into your lower body or breathing into your leg, you don't have a lung in your leg, but the visualization of doing so helps all of the muscles that need to participate in that, helps them conform to that. So energy, anyway, having this sense of connecting into the earth, pulling in energy from the earth, allowing that to go all the way from the feet stepping through the knees, the hips, the low back, the chest, all the way through the head, out through the crown of your head, the top of your head. And I'm not speaking through this in real time. Really take your time practicing through this on your own. But once you have a sense of that, like really feeling like you pulled in all the earth's energy through your body, I think it's super useful to have some sort of cleansing mechanism come down from, imagining again, through the crown of your head, going back through that same path all the way through your body, into your feet, and into the earth. So whether this is something that feels like a light or water or some other kind of flowy liquid, whatever you envision that seems like it would be cleansing or fulfilling for you, just give that a practice. And just, if anything, don't worry about getting it right or wrong. Just notice how you feel. If you feel better, if you feel more calm, then this is helpful. And once you've practiced this a little bit and you feel really good, really grounded, really connected in this state, one thing that's helped me is to find, it's kind of taking a trick from the neurolinguistic folks, is to find some sort of anchor. I like using a snap, where I snap my fingers and move my arm downward to reconnect to that state. And I kind of use that as a preset, as a way of redrawing in that state whenever I need to use it again or want to access it again. Another thing you can do outside of that deep meditation or mudra, something you can tap into wherever you're at that you don't have to, maybe you don't have the time or the ability to tune out like that for a few minutes, is to begin consciously directing your chi. So chi, again, is this life force energy. It's analogous to what's being measured in those electrocardiograms and electroencephalograms. And this is really tied to connecting to your breath. So if your breath is stuck or blocked, then your chi is not going to flow as well. So again, like that athletic posture, you want to keep kind of soft knees, flex knees, connecting to your breath and really directing your breath throughout your body, in this case for grounding towards the ground, keeping your joints kind of loose, not straight or crossed. You can do it whether you're sitting, standing, or lying down, but just really envisioning directing your own internal energy flow towards the earth. And play with whatever is most comfortable or your dominant learning style. Some people are really visual, some of us are more kinesthetic, and some of us are more audibly oriented. You can use all of them, but play with what works best for you. So you may have a picture of visualizing your chi, however that feels to you, moving your energy down towards the earth. One of my teachers used to have this practice of describing impeccable weight shifts. So this is, as you're standing, literally just taking a very slow sense of sinking your weight from one foot into the other, and feeling what it's like as you make that transfer, so that it's smooth and seamless, almost like you're pouring sand from an hourglass from one side to the other. This was super useful for me once when I was on a cruise ship, or taking a ferry from a cruise ship to a land excursion where I was going to tour the Tulum ruins in the Yucatan Peninsula. And this ferry boat that we all had to take that wanted to hit the mainland was a very choppy ride. I don't remember how long it was. It seemed like way too long than it needed to be, but it was maybe 15, 20 minutes. So it wasn't that long. But there was easily half the people on board were, vomiting into puke bags as the attendees were sort of handing these around. And I am definitely not a water person. I'm much more a land biased kind of person. And I thought, well, how can I make this feel better for myself? And I thought, I'm going to just not only ground myself, but really focus on this specific practice of directing my chi. So I maintained the soft focus forward and just thought of moving my chi down my body. So the opposite of regurgitation, moving my energy down. I'm sitting in my seat and just thinking of moving my chi down my spine, through my feet, into the earth, even though I'm on a very choppy ferry ride. Ended up not getting sick by the time I got to mainland. I was off and running to my excursion. So that was a very useful application for me in that sense. And the last area I'll touch on here is being conscious about directing your thoughts in general. So again, what might seem paradoxical from this, if you're oriented towards putting your physical body or your energy directed toward Earth, in this regard, what has been helpful for me is a recommendation to broaden your mental perspective. So kind of assuming the 30,000-foot view or an eagle eye perspective. Eagles have an incredibly sharp sense of sight, and they're able to maintain this broad field of view while they're flying, yet still be able to focus in on important details like their prey, for example. So how do we apply this as humans is to typically think, well, whatever's going on, it's super easy to lose the forest through the trees in the middle of a busy day. So if you can stop and ask yourself, how important is this, insert your topic of distress, whatever that happens to be, how important is this deadline? And certainly we all have to do with practical aspects of life, deadlines and whatnot, but if this is something that's perpetually taking you out of this state of equanimity that we're trying to move toward, it's useful to check in with your prioritization of how important really is this regarding goals that I might have at hand, certainly in my business or my career, financial goals, goals with my family, goals that I have socially, and even stepping back more broadly from that, what areas of responsibility that I have in my life that I am either addressing or not? Does this really feed those things that are most important to me? And even stepping back a further level from that at a broader life path, how much is this really contributing to my life meaning? Is this something that will impact me or make sense to me or have value to me in a week, a month, a year, 10 years from now? Once I pass, is this the kind of thing that will affect the legacy and what I want to do while I'm here on Earth? So again, that's kind of taking things further out, but just taking a few minutes to adopt that 30,000-foot view can really help bring a little bit of clarity and also dispel some of the frenetic charge that we might have in the mental noise going on. And trust me, there's plenty of that to go around. I've have experienced myself. So in summary, the recommendation here is to play with some sort of visualization or kinesthetic model which best suits you. So I gave some examples of meditations, modeling, moving your chi, and connect with this model or this practice initially in a quiet environment so that you can really kind of feel it in your body. And when you do feel it in your body, do something to kind of anchor that, to say, oh yeah, there's my preset. I'm going to come back to this whenever I need it. I really encourage you to play with these other notions if you haven't done so already in other practices where you're moving your chi downward, practicing those impeccable weight shifts, and maintaining a broader mental focus in general, being really selective about where you're choosing to pour your energy mentally. I'd love to know what about this resonates with you, and if you have any grounding practices that I haven't mentioned here, what has worked best for you? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found some value in what I've discussed today, I would certainly appreciate your giving this video a like, clicking on the subscribe button with notifications. Also, if you know of anyone who might appreciate what I've shared here, please feel free to forward this video to them. These small actions take only a few seconds and cost nothing, yet they really help support the channel. Thank you so much for watching and have a powerful week.